America is full of towns that no longer exist, not erased from maps, but erased from life. Places where schools still stand, but children never returned. Where homes still face the street, but no one looks out the windows. Where businesses close their doors and never unlock them again. These towns weren't destroyed overnight. They were abandoned, left behind, and whatever happened here didn't leave quietly. Tonight, we're traveling across America, into deserts, mountains, forests, and forgotten highways to uncover the unsolved mysteries of America's ghost towns. Because some towns didn't just die, they vanished. Introduction. Why ghost towns capture us. Deep in the heart of America, there are towns that once thrived. Mining towns filled with workers, railroad towns buzzing with travelers, industrial towns built on factories and promise. They had schools, churches, families, dreams. And then, something happened. Today, these places stand frozen in time. Windows shattered, paint peeling, streets empty. Ghost towns don't just show us what was lost. They force us to ask why. Why did people leave? Why didn't they come back? And what was left behind when they did? What creates a ghost town? Ghost towns aren't accidents. They're the result of collapse. Sometimes economic, sometimes environmental, sometimes human. Common causes include mining booms that ran dry, factories that shut down, railroads that changed routes, natural disasters, fires, floods, disease outbreaks. But in some towns, the official explanation doesn't explain everything, and that's where mystery begins. Centralia, Pennsylvania, the town that's still burning. If there's one ghost town that refuses to rest, it's Centralia, Pennsylvania. Centralia was once a thriving coal mining community. Families lived here for generations. Children played in the streets. Church bells rang on Sundays. Then in 1962, something went terribly wrong. A coal seam beneath the town caught fire. At first, officials believed it would burn itself out. It didn't. The fire that would not die. The fire spread underground, invisible, relentless. Toxic gases leaked into basements. The ground cracked open. Sinkholes appeared without warning. In one infamous incident, a 12-year-old boy nearly fell into a burning pit that opened beneath his feet. By the 1980s, Centralia was declared uninhabitable. Homes were demolished. Residents were relocated. The town was erased from highway signs. But the fire still burns, and it's expected to continue for another 250 years. Centralia's haunted reputation. Despite the danger, visitors continue to come. They report steam rising from cracks in the ground, roads splitting apart, the smell of sulfur in the air, unexplained noises at night. Some claim to hear voices echoing through empty streets. Others say Centralia doesn't feel empty at all. It feels watched. Bodie, California, the town that refuses to die next. We travel west to the mountains of California. Bodie was once a booming gold rush town. At its peak in the late 1800s, Bodie had over 10,000 residents, saloons, brothels, schools, churches. It was a town built on greed, violence, and survival. And when the gold dried up, so did the people. A perfectly preserved ghost. Unlike most ghost towns, Bodie wasn't destroyed. It was abandoned slowly. Today, Bodie remains preserved in a state known as arrested decay. Furniture still sits in homes. Dishes remain on tables. Books lie open, mid-sentence. But Bodie has another reputation, a darker one. The curse of Bodie. Visitors to Bodie often report strange occurrences, but one legend stands above all others, the Bodie curse. It's said that anyone who removes an object from the town, even a small rock, will suffer misfortune. Park rangers regularly receive packages mailed back from visitors. Inside, stolen items, along with letters describing accidents, illness, financial ruin, or death. Many believe Bodie doesn't like being disturbed. Apparitions and unexplained activity. Visitors report ghostly figures in windows, footsteps echoing through empty buildings, children's laughter near the schoolhouse, lights appearing in sealed rooms. Some say the spirits of Bodie never left. They're just waiting. Virginia City, Montana. Gold, guns, and ghosts. Now we head north to Virginia City, Montana. Once one of the richest gold towns in America. Thousands arrived overnight. Lawlessness ruled. Violence was common. When the gold ran out, the town collapsed. But according to legend, not everyone left. The miner who never stopped working. One of the most famous legends is that of a miner who died underground. Visitors claim to hear pickaxes striking rock, heavy boots walking through buildings, voices muttering in empty rooms. The sounds come from nowhere and everywhere. Even skeptics admit something feels off here. Why these towns feel different? Ghost towns aren't just abandoned places. They're interrupted stories, lives cut short, dreams unfinished, communities erased. And when places lose purpose suddenly, they don't fade gently. They linger. Part 1. Ending. The road ahead. We've only just begun. Across America, dozens of ghost towns remain, each with its own secrets. Some were swallowed by nature, some were poisoned by industry, some were abandoned after something went terribly wrong, and some have legends so dark, locals refuse to speak about them. In Part 2, we'll explore towns destroyed by disasters, places erased by disease and violence, and the ghost towns where people swear something still lives there, because the past doesn't always stay buried. People leave one by one. Businesses close. Lights go out. But other towns die all at once, overnight. And when that happens, the silence left behind feels unnatural. Because when people flee suddenly, they don't take everything with them. They leave behind lives mid-motion. Eagle Mountain, California, a town built to fail. Eagle Mountain wasn't old. It wasn't historic. It wasn't even forgotten. It was planned. Built in the 1940s to house workers for an iron mine in the California desert, Eagle Mountain was a company town, owned, controlled, and supplied by a single corporation. When the mine thrived, so did the town. When the mine closed, everything stopped. A modern ghost town. Schools closed. Stores shut down. Families packed up and left. But unlike old ghost towns, Eagle Mountain was left almost intact. Playgrounds still stand. Street signs remain. Homes sit empty. Visitors report something disturbing. The town feels like people left in a hurry. Strange reports from Eagle Mountain explorers describe doors slamming in windless streets, footsteps echoing inside empty homes, radios turning on by themselves, children's voices near abandoned playgrounds. Security patrols have reported seeing figures watching from windows long after sunset. No one has ever been found. Centralia wasn't the only town poisoned. America has other towns destroyed not by ghosts, but by invisible killers. Picha, Oklahoma, toxic death by design. Picha, Oklahoma was built on lead and zinc mining. For decades, it was one of the richest mining towns in the country. But mining waste, known as chat, was piled everywhere. Playgrounds, backyards, schoolyards, children played in poison. A slow, unstoppable death by the 1990s. Children had dangerously high lead levels. Sinkholes opened beneath homes. Buildings collapsed without warning. The EPA declared the town unsafe. Residents were forced to leave. What people report. Now former residents returning to visit describe a heavy metallic smell, ringing in the ears, sudden nausea, a sense of pressure in the chest. Some swear they hear voices calling their names from homes that no longer exist. When disease erases a town, Bodie wasn't alone. Not all ghost towns died from industry. Some were killed by sickness. Kennecott, Alaska, isolation and death. Kennecott was once a booming copper town. But Alaska's isolation was unforgiving. Supplies were scarce. Medical help was limited. Winters were brutal. When illness spread, it spread fast. People died far from home, and many were buried where they fell. The frozen dead locals and explorers claim shadows moving in snowstorms, voices heard during whiteouts, figures standing near mine entrances. Some say the cold preserves more than bodies. It preserves memory. St. Elmo, Colorado, the town that never sleeps high in the Rockies, sits St. Elmo, one of America's most famous ghost towns. But unlike others, St. Elmo doesn't feel empty. When people stay too long, though officially abandoned, caretakers lived nearby for decades. Visitors began reporting doors opening and closing, objects moving, voices responding to questions. One building, the general store, is notorious. Items reportedly move on their own. Skeptics claim it's tricks. Witnesses insist it's something else. A town that watches back. People often say St. Elmo feels aware, like it knows when you're there and doesn't want you staying long. The disappearing towns when nothing makes sense. Some towns vanished without disaster. No fire, no flood, no collapse, just gone. Glen Rio, Texas, New Mexico, strangled by progress. Glen Rio sat on Route 66, a perfect stop. Then the interstate bypassed it. Within years, businesses closed, travelers vanished, residents left. But what unsettles people isn't why Glen Rio died. It's how fast. An abrupt end. One year, Glen Rio was alive. The next, it was empty. Visitors say, the air feels heavy. Sounds seem muffled. Time feels distorted. Some swear clocks stop working there. When legends are born from loss. Every ghost town tells a story. But when tragedy hits suddenly, legends grow. People don't just want explanations. They want meaning. And sometimes, meaning becomes myth. The psychology of ghost towns. Why do abandoned places feel unsettling? Because humans are wired for patterns. Homes are meant to be lived in. Towns are meant to be noisy. Streets are meant to be walked. When those patterns break, our brains fill the silence. But not everything is imagined. When witnesses agree, skeptics often dismiss ghost stories. But in many ghost towns, witnesses describe the same things, without knowing each other, without sharing stories beforehand. That's what keeps these mysteries alive. Across America, ghost towns continue to stand, weathered, silent, watching. Some are tourist attractions, some are off-limits, some are completely forgotten. But no matter the cause of abandonment, every ghost town shares one truth. Something ended here. And endings leave echoes. Most people think ghost towns are harmless. Empty buildings, broken windows, dust and silence. But some ghost towns aren't finished with people. Some don't just remember the past. They actively pull the present into it. When visitors don't come back across the US, there are abandoned towns where visitors vanish. No evidence of crime, no witnesses, no bodies, just cars left behind. Cerro Gordo, California. The town built on violence. High above Death Valley sits Cerro Gordo, a silver mining town so violent in the 1800s that one murder per week was considered normal. Gunfights, stabbings, disappearances. More than half the population died violently. Modern encounters, caretakers and visitors report footsteps on upper floors, doors slamming in locked buildings, apparitions of men in 1800s clothing, heavy feelings of dread with no cause. One caretaker claimed he was pushed downstairs by an unseen force. Another woke to find handprints on his chest. The warning locals give: don't stay overnight alone. Those who ignore it often leave early, or shaken, or not at all. Terlingua, Texas, a town that never lets go. Terlingua sits on the edge of Big Bend National Park, a mercury mining town poisoned by its own success. Workers died slowly. Families buried loved ones in shallow desert graves. When the mine closed, people fled. But something stayed. The Desert Voices hikers report, hearing their names called, seeing lanterns in the hills, figures watching from old ruins. The cemetery is especially active. Visitors describe feeling followed long after leaving. The most disturbing pattern. Across dozens of ghost towns, investigators notice something chilling. The most intense activity occurs where death was sudden. Bodies were never recovered. Trauma was collective. The town was abandoned quickly. Ghost towns aren't just empty, they're unfinished. When the past bleeds into the present, psychologists argue ghost towns trigger fear because of isolation. But that doesn't explain. Identical sightings by strangers, shared auditory hallucinations, physical marks on visitors, electronics failing at the same locations. Something doesn't add up. The haunting of Bannock, Montana. Once Montana's territorial capital, now one of America's most haunted ghost towns. Bannock saw executions, lynchings, and lawlessness. The sheriff who never left the most famous ghost is Sheriff Henry Plummer, executed for allegedly running a gang of road agents. Visitors report a man watching from the jail window, footsteps in the gallows area, voices whispering, innocent. Even skeptics leave uneasy. The ghost towns that shouldn't exist. Some towns shouldn't be haunted. No violence, no tragedy, no disaster. Yet activity persists. Why some places never heal. Anthropologists suggest abandoned places lose their social anchors. When humans leave suddenly, energy, emotional or psychological, remains unresolved. Ghost towns are places where stories were never finished. Grief had no closure, communities vanished overnight, and humans are wired to feel that absence. When legends turn into warnings. At first, ghost town stories were entertainment. Then they became cautionary tales. Now, in some places, they're warnings locals take seriously. Signs posted, areas fenced, sections closed, not for safety, for silence. Are they really empty? If you stand in a ghost town long enough, you start to feel it. That sense you're not alone, that something is watching, waiting, not to know who you are, but to see how long you'll stay. The truth about ghost towns. America's ghost towns aren't just abandoned places. They're reminders of ambition, of greed, of disaster, of people who never got to leave on their own terms. Some towns died slowly. Others were ripped apart overnight. But all of them share one truth. They were once alive, and some things that lived there never left. So if you ever find yourself walking through a silent street, past empty homes, with no wind, no sound, and you feel like you're being watched, trust that feeling, because the most dangerous ghost towns aren't the ones filled with spirits. They're the ones that still remember you.